Alright guys, so I did a video about a week ago on my first impressions of the Core Steel 2 SoundBrenner Musician Smartwatch. And I've used the watch for a week now, and I wanted to give you my final thoughts and let you know why I decided not to keep it. So the watch retails for around $330. The open box price was much less expensive, around $220. I think actually retails $330, and this is $220 at the time of the video. Now, you can get an Apple Watch, which is what I was using previously, and they're roughly the same price, $250, maybe $200 when they're on sale for the base model SE or whatever. And while this, I think the motor in it is a definitive improvement for a metronome over the Apple Watch, the other features just don't really add up. I'm not sure if you could get a decibel meter or a tuner app or anything like that for the Apple Watch. But I'll tell you kind of like my experience with each of the features of the watch. So the practice tracker, it's pretty cool that you can go on your watch and just you go down with the big button on the bottom. You are on the practice tracker. You hit down again. It asks you to track. You hit track. You double tap or whatever. You double tap to stop. That was pretty cool. But it's very basic, elementary. It's not very full featured unless you use the app. Now, the app is cool. You could put notes in for yourself or whatever. But if I'm going to be using an app, I already have one through my website that I use with myself and for all my students. That didn't really make sense to use this watch if it was going to lean into the app very much. If I'm going to have to sit down with my phone in front of me, I might as well just sit down in front of the computer, which I'm usually at anyway. So while it's useful, I think the fact that you have to have the app, might as well just maybe download an app and use that instead. Might be able to find a similar one or better one even. Vibrating metronome. I thought this was a great feature overall, but for me personally, could not get used to it. I tried using it on several occasions, and it was just, unless I was doing a slower BPM, like below 100, it was very hard to feel the difference in the vibrations, especially while playing on my left hand and my right hand. I did a test for guitar, and I did my left hand on piano, or I had it on my left hand on piano. So I found it very difficult to keep track of, and I turned the vibration up, I turned it down, and it still wasn't really working for me. I found an auditory metronome to be a lot more useful. If you're playing on stage with in-ears, you can definitely use a click track or something like that in your in-ears, and that would probably be more useful than this might be. For other instances, such as like a orchestra or maybe performing for a school, where you are trying to audition for, maybe to get in like Berkeley or something like that. This could definitely be useful because it's not going to be loud enough for them to really notice that it's doing anything. And you can turn the light off so it doesn't make, flashing motions or anything while you're playing. That was pretty, so I think there's a use to that, but for me, it didn't make sense. The chromatic tuner, again, I was like, oh, like this could totally replace my Korg MA2. It could replace my Snark super tight tuner. And that would be, great. I mean, both of those together cost about $80 when I bought them. So I was like, okay, chromatic tuner, that'd be cool. So I tried tuning several times. I tried tuning an acoustic. I tried tuning electrics. Actually, 4 different guitars in total that I tried tuning, and a bass. Bass could not figure out what the heck was going on. It didn't want to register what was happening on the bass. I couldn't figure out how to change it to vibration sensitivity instead of using the microphone. I'm not sure if you have to use the magnetic thing. I don't think the open box came with the magnetic thing. I didn't look very hard, to be honest, but I didn't see it in there. Okay, so the chromatic tuner worked great on low E, A, and D when I was playing acoustically on the acoustic guitar and the classical guitar behind me. When I tried on the electrics, it didn't really register anything, and if it did, it would like 2 seconds and gone. So if I set it on top of the guitar, I don't know if it was because it was closer or maybe because even though it didn't say anything about having it go through vibration, it was picking up the vibrations. I could tune the entire guitar. On the acoustic guitars, even though it did the lower strings fine, G, B, and high E were still a struggle. on the like standard like auditorium acoustic I had back there. It was okay with G and B. B not so much, but B and high E were having trouble. On the classical, about the same. It did okay on E, A, and D. G was not so great, and then B not so great, and then E was just like didn't even know what was happening until I put the watch on the guitar. I had to take it off the band and on the guitar. So maybe it'd be better if you got like the little magnetic plate, or used they have the little clip-on attachment. But again, I was like, oh, if this is replacing the Snark, I don't really want to buy that attachment too, because it's just more money to replace something that I already have that works very well. Decibel meter, unfortunately, I didn't have a good way of testing this. I play through headphones most of the time, and when I do play through speakers, I'm already metering almost constantly on the computer, and I don't change the volume of my Headrush MX5 ever, because the volume is set perfectly to the mix that sends to my students when I'm teaching. So even if it's coming through the speakers, like, it doesn't get very loud. So I didn't even try that. So I can't say anything on the decibel meter. The smartwatch features. Okay, this is where all the other videos that I watched seem to just kind of neglect talking about. So I want to talk about this. It does have smartwatch features, but as I explained in the introduction video, in my first impressions, the center part of this is not a screen. You have a small screen up here and a small screen down here. Maybe it's the same screen and they just have it split. But either way, you have two little windows that you can see the screen, which you can see here and here. Okay. Let's say you get a text message. Up top, it'll tell you who it is. At the bottom, it'll give you a summary of what the message is. Same for an email. It'll tell you up top, who emailed you. And I don't think it gives you a summary of what the email is, but it would give you like maybe the subject field or something like that. I have a security system around my house. It would tell me, the app that was sending me the notification, and then which camera in the house was doing that. I'm like, okay, so it's giving me basic notifications. This is something that I could glance at my phone and see pretty easily, but I'd have to take the phone out of my pocket. So while that was useful, I think calling it a smartwatch is a little bit preemptive, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't do what a smartwatch you would expect to do. Like, I couldn't check the weather, which is one of the only things I did with my Apple Watch. My Apple Watch, I look at it for the time, I look at it for the temperature, and if it was raining, and that was about it. It did track my walking sometimes and stuff like that, but that was like, if it did it, I let it do it. So I didn't expect it to have like that kind of feature, but I thought maybe I could at least, change that top piece to say what time it was, maybe the date, and then maybe I can make the time smaller and have like the weather or something. But no, you can't adjust any of that. So I didn't find the smartwatch features to be smartwatchy enough. I don't know how else to phrase it. They weren't terrible, but I've also owned like a cheap, I think it was about $35, $40 smartwatch off Amazon a few years back, and I think that had more feature than this. Now, there was things on that watch that were bad, like it had a heart rate monitor that was completely inaccurate, but I think it still had more functionality as a smartwatch than this does for the extremely high price you pay for this. But yeah, I mean, I don't think they should be advertising it. Like, maybe they should say, message notifications or something. Smartwatch is a little bit of a stretch. Now, as far as the build quality of the watch, I thought it was pretty solid overall. There's one thing I didn't really like, and I'll get into that in a second. But the casing of it, the screen of it, I bumped it a couple of times. Didn't seem to scratch very easily or anything like that. It was very easy to take it in and out of the band on my wrist to put it on the guitars to tune, although I didn't want to have to do that. So it was, a pretty well-built watch, in my opinion. The only thing I didn't like is you navigate. There's no touch screen, really. There's a touch capacitor in the center of the screen here where you tap on the watch. But everything else is navigated by the two buttons, the small one on top, the bigger one on the bottom, and then a ring around the watch. The ring around the watch and the buttons, one of the buttons just didn't feel like it was ever pressing. The bottom one, like, I would hit it and it didn't feel like it was clicking. Like, I couldn't always tell. And sometimes I would hit it and think I clicked it and I didn't click it, and then an hour later I'd see it have like 6 notifications that I forgot to clear out because I missed hitting the button. The ring around the watch. Now, this was the one that bothered me the most. You navigate with that ring. So let's say I want to go to my tools, like all the apps they have built in. You hit the bottom button, you go to the ring. You navigate by twisting the ring to the right or left. Well, it kind of like clicks in place, like, click, 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 whatever. Well, not every click is the next menu item. You would start turning it, and it would go 3 or 4 items and then click into place. 3 or 4 items and then click in place, which means if you stopped on like the second or third item, you would have it like in this center limbo where it's not like fully seated until you go back to the home screen and then fully seated again, where it's not going to mess anything up. And I found that super annoying, especially since like it's also vibrating when you're turning it. So every time it switches the menu item, it vibrates, but then eventually it clicks into place. So I think what SoundBrenner should have done, honestly, 2 things. They should have made it click more often so it lined up with the menu items. Eventually that mechanism probably would have worn out and would be out of sync. That could be exactly what happened with a demo unit from Sweetwater, but I highly doubt they used it that much to do like that kind of wear and tear on it. I mean, the watch looked immaculate when I got it. The other option would be don't have it click at all. Just have a much more firm feeling dial. It can be, again, continuous. And when you're turning it, instead of it clicking into place, it just gradually changes and vibrates when you get to the new menu item. That would have been probably the solution I would have suggested to them. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that this is a terrible product or anything like that. I do think it's a little overpriced. Maybe the other, not the steel one, but maybe the other one being a little bit more worthwhile. But if you need the silent metronome and you can get used to the vibrations of the metronome rather than an auditory one like we're all mostly used to, I think this might be a good option. But I can't honestly recommend it. It didn't do anything for me that I feel like you would have expected it to. And again, I didn't feel like any of the videos I had seen before really explained the features of the watch and how all of them work. So hopefully this video will do that service. Thanks so much for watching the video, guys. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, the other button works as well. And don't forget to leave a comment if you have any questions. And this will be going back to Sweetwater today. So I just wanted to be honest about how I felt about it because I released that first video. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Bye.